Hi guys, I'm going to try this technology out. If it doesn't work, I'll see if you can read the board. But this would be my classroom, and if this was the lesson I was teaching, the students will be walking in through the doors as I get to this next piece. So I'll kind of show you how that goes. But again, I'm talking about teaching with a graphic organizer. My grade levels would be 7th and 8th grade that I'd be working on. But this skill could be used for younger grades and older grades, which we do in our school here. My content is language arts. And the lesson that we're going to be focusing on today is a one-sentence summary, and that is taken from Steve Dunn, who I've done some training with. One of the things as a teacher that I have are essential questions that I have, and this one is for reading, and it says successful readers use a variety of skills and strategies to understand and appreciate what they read. The Common Core standard that I'm focusing in on this one is mostly going to be dealing with providing a summary of the text. So we're talking about those central ideas, using information from that text and citing it, all that good stuff, but the main focus I have is for the summary. I'm going to click on my next. This is what would be on the board as the students walk in. First thing they're going to be looking for is the learning goal. They will be checking off the sheet on theirs that they have a list of all the learning goals for the year. And I can summarize a central idea in a text using supporting evidence. So the first thing they would see is they would look over this. Oh, we're working on summarization today of those central key ideas. And they see their interactivity is write a summary of the article below. We would not have had any instruction up to this point. They would be taking what they've had from elementary school if they had not had the one-sentence summary. Summary. This is a new skill that I want them to have. So the first thing they would do is grab a half sheet of paper off the desk, and they would start writing out a summary. And what I notice is they'll be writing pages and pages worth of information on it, and we only have one paragraph. So after they have those written out, and things have settled down, I would go on to our next piece, and I would have them share out at the really important, especially in the middle school, to give those students that opportunity to talk with one another because they are social creatures. So they would share out what their summary was at their tables, and I usually have 4 to 6 at a table depending on what room we are in. Excuse me. And after they've looked at that, we would talk about, well, what does a good summary really need? And I would spend a lot of time asking questions, probing questions for them. So I might say, well, what does your good summary have to have? What is one thing that all of yours had in common? And if they're talking about the one that we had in this case, they're more likely going to say, well, it has to be talking about the bats. So we'd be good. What would we call that? That's like, well, the noun. And we go through those different steps. So as they're doing that, I would be writing those down, and I'll show you what they come up with in just a little bit. And then we talk about a summary. Should be 10% of what you read. So kind of the norm that we say, if you've read a page, it should be about a one-sentence summary. So we really focus on, in 7th and 8th grade, writing a really good one-sentence summary. And again, I got that from Steve Dunn. So then what we should do, the who, the when, where, how, and why. And we would have gone through that with the class, how they come up with those different pieces. And in your lessons, you will be doing that actual piece. But I'm just going to give you the overall of what this piece is for our graphic organizer. So then we would talk about, well, how did you find the what this whole paper was about? And many of them will say, well, in the paragraph it talked about that noun. So we really try to focus in, and yeah, it has to have a noun because we're completing up a sentence. It's going to have a subject and a predicate, a noun and a verb. So the first one we go through is how to find that noun. And then what I give them is some strategies to use. So what we'll do is we'll take out a highlighter. All right, let's do some tallies. We're going to literally do them on our hands. First sentence, sometimes people. Okay, so we have people. Say that someone who doesn't see well is blind as a bat. Well, we're talking about the nouns in there where people, someone was the same, bats. And we'll just highlight some of those pieces on out. Bats, so we've had 2 for people. Bats, so we've got another one, are not really blind, however. Most of them, well, them, that's referring to bats, we would talk about, have tiny eyes that cannot see. So bats, we go through it and then keep marking. Well, it's pretty much said 10 times in this particular one. So if we went over and made tallies on bats, we've got lots of times at bats, and they realize that, oh, again and again and again, bats comes up. It wins in the tally score. So again, for that strategy to finding out the who, we will have them count on their fingers. Okay, so that was who, all those pronouns, everything that refers back to whatever the main topic is. And in this case, it's bats that they found. Then we talk about what? Well, what are the bats doing in this case? What is the verb? So when we talked about verbs before, they usually have an action. What are the bats doing? And I'll go through this with all of these. So we found out that it was bats. And then we talk about, as we read through that, what are the bats really doing? Well, then they'll come up with, we kind of synthesize that, they are seeing with their ears, which is different than we do. We see with our eyes. So they thought that was a good one as we went through. After we have these two key pieces in, just like they learned in elementary school, we can start adding on to that sentence. When do bats see with their eyes? Where do bats see with their eyes? How do bats see with their eyes? And why do bats see with their eyes? We start filling in this little grid, which is what we've done on this particular one. So again, these two pieces we have to have, and then everything else goes up and answers that question of when do bats see with their eyes, where, how, and why. And we've got all of this information. We've either pulled directly from that text that we had, or they have inferred from that text. And we talk about inferring, make sure that we're careful that we can actually cite that textual evidence. So in the best case scenario, we want to pull that right from our text. That way we know we're not using any of our previous knowledge that we have. And while they are doing this, I give them 6 sticky notes, and they have written who on it, and as soon as they find out the who, they write that on their sticky note, and we're going to use that strategy for what we do next. So I just tried to show them, or show you the sticky notes with the yellow paper that I have up here, or the yellow marking behind it. But each one of those is a sticky note that they have laid out on their desk. And then the next step is we rearrange those and kind of put them into a sentence. So I have them working on this piece. Actually, we should go here. So I look at it and I would have, I'll clear my annotations out real quick. And we talk about how can we rearrange those? Well, most of the time we have our noun and our verb. Bats see with their eyes at night using echolocation to hunt and avoid hitting objects. Maybe we could even add in the air in that case. And that's what most of the students will come up with for their first sentence. Very basic, noun, verb, follows that normal pattern of that particular piece. And then we have them manipulate them. All right, so we all came up with this one, and this is usually the one I use as example. Using what we know about our grammar, punctuation, spelling, all of our conventions, how could you rearrange this and bring this from a level 2, because it meets criteria, or level 3 question, all the way up to a higher level thinking piece where I can tell that you've had more thought into it. So they're rearranging their pieces and writing their sentence using that. So they might say, at night, using echolocation, and then they would add their comma, because we know that's an opener. Bats, excuse me, see with their eyes while hunting or to hunt and avoid objects in the air. And then we'll go around and share those out at their desk. And that's what I've shown on this next one. So now I'll go ahead and write a different sentence. They rearrange those and share those out. I'm constantly using quick little breaks in between. Share out with the person next to you. Turn in table talk with the people at your spot. Partner share the person across from you. Stand up when you're done with your sentence. That's some things I might be using. So when they get finished with this, just stand up so we know when you're finished. Or I might have them, if I don't want things standing out, hands on their head, hands on their hip, cross your legs, left over right, just to do something to get them moving while they're waiting for that particular piece. And then one other one I have them do is always make sure you're rereading. Think about punctuation, grammar, spelling, all those different aspects that we would need to have. And then again, we're always referring back to the central idea. Now this will take us a while that first day, and then what I might have them do is we might get an article, just tell me what the who and the what are. Find your noun and your verb. What are you going to have for that? Another day I might give them these and have them rearrange the questions. So they can be real quick introductory activities that allow me to see what's going on. While they're working on this one, I normally would have seen by what we've done already of who's gotten what particular piece. So let's say the next day we have a new article up. I might have them write those down, and as they're writing down, I'm walking around the room and shaking out who's got what, who's got whatever. And then while they're working on a next piece, I'll be going back with those other students and helping clarify. Oh, they didn't quite understand the what, and I might pull that group aside, or a few students, depending on how many I have, and reteach that certain area. And then again, have those ones that have it move on to a higher level way of writing their particular sentence. And then at the end of this one, here's our graphic organizer, and I just use little sticky notes so they have an idea of that. They can put their sticky notes right on top, and then they don't have to write the who, what, when, where, how, and why. Eventually, we want to get them so they don't even have to use that. They can read and just summarize it in one sentence, and that's where our 8th graders are. And then on the graphic organizer, they'll write their actual sentence. So after we've gone through that process, and this is probably a couple weeks worth now, then this is what an assignment that they would be doing on their own would be. They might walk in, here's the introductory activity for the day, or it could be an so they use their sticky notes, and in this case I may have them write the sentence, I may just have them work it on out depending on where we are in the skill. So here would be their sentence. They would have to go through, check the graphic organizer pieces off again. So that's basically what we would be doing if we're doing a 1-sentence summary.